many of you could join us this morning to hear more about it. Thank you so much for taking an interest, and I hope you find this useful. So I'm going to hand over now to Chris and Tanisa, who are going to talk to you about the Serious Violence Duty Fund and what its aims and objectives are. Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much, Jess. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen, guys, and I'll be with you in 1 second. So hopefully you can see that. Brilliant. Thanks, Jess. So yeah, thank you for that introduction, Jess. And I'm Chris Woods. And well, thank you for everyone for joining the call as well. It's great to see so many people that are interested in the Serious Violence Prevention Fund. I'm Chris Woods. I'm joined by Nisa Hayes. We work for Suffolk County Council in the Public Health and Communities Directorate. We work in a really small team there called Community Safety. We're also joined on the call today as well by Kate Fitzsimmons from the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office. The Police and Crime Commissioner's Office are more involved in managing the relationship with the Home Office in relation to this fund. But Kate's available later on to answer any questions that Nisa and I might not be able to ask around some of the specifics for the fund. We won't take too long. We only have a handful of slides to talk to, and really I think we're here today to have a discussion with you and hopefully answer any of the questions that you might have. So we'll cover the items on the slide. I'm going to give a really brief introduction around what the Serious Violence Duty is and where all this work has kind of come from, where this fund has come from. And then we'll get into a bit more detail around the fund. I'll give an overview on it, and then Nisa will do a bit more of the detail. And we'll finish off with kind of the Home Office requirement. This is Home Office funding. So their requirements and a bit around some of the monitoring. And we're kind of pleased to say, hopefully the monitoring is not too onerous. And then we'll get on to the next steps. So a bit really about this Serious Violence Duty and where all this work has come from. There was a new duty introduced in January last year, 31st of January 2023, and it kind of places a duty on various statutory partners to work together to prevent and reduce serious violence. And this kind of duty sits within that. You might have heard of it, the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act. This duty kind of sits within that. And the new duty came from a few things really that government observed. And one of those things was that from 2014 onwards until 2022, they'd seen that there'd been this really sharp rise in serious violent crime, more so really than other types of crimes. And as I say, that kind of leveled off in 2022, and we're at that, it kind of peaked, I suppose. The other thing that government saw was that nationwide, some partnerships were kind of working really well on trying to prevent and reduce serious violent crime, and others were not working so well. And so I think this introduction, this new duty, was a chance to level the playing field, if you like, ensuring that all areas in England and Wales are working in partnership to reduce and prevent serious violent crime. I'm really happy to say that in Suffolk we have some great partnerships already in place, kind of working on these issues. So the other thing that central government saw is that there was nowhere near enough data sharing happening between agencies to really look at the root causes and then the issues. So that, in a nutshell, is where this new duty has come from. And just to be clear, the duty holders, the people that are responsible for this work, are statutory agencies, which include Suffolk County Council, all the district and borough councils, Suffolk Constabulary, Suffolk Probation Service, the 2 integrated care boards that cover Suffolk, so our health colleagues, the Youth Justice Service, and the Fire and Rescue Service as well. Relationship or not with these agencies, reach out, get in touch, have a discussion about the work. We're all really pleased and happy to talk to you about the new fund and the Serious Violence Duty. So as duty holders, we needed to do 3 things. We needed to do a lot of things, but it boiled down to 3 things for simplicity. One was to form a partnership group, and we already had those kind of partnership groups in place already. We needed to undertake a needs assessment of serious violence in Suffolk. Public Health had produced a report in 2019 around violence in Suffolk, and so we had a really good kind of footing, I suppose, to improve on that needs assessment. And we had to produce a strategy as well. And the strategy, I think, is a reflection and really of the work that's already happening in Suffolk. There are work programmes in place for violence against women and girls, criminal exploitation, which you might know as gangs and county lines activity, and we also have the combating drugs kind of work programme as well in place. So this strategy and fund, I think, is about building on what's already in place and not reinventing the wheel. And central government were quite clear to us in the beginning that you shouldn't be reinventing the wheel, and you should be building on what you've already kind of got. The heart of the strategy is about prevention, early intervention, and young people. And when we spoke to our partners, professionals, practitioners, people working in communities, educators, we heard people talk about young people and the need for prevention. Education starts early. Primary school was spoken a lot by people. Interventions need to be delivered in local areas for local people. Where possible, we should look to empower community leaders and role models who would likely remain in the area and be visible. So, and I think, what we also heard is where there are strong communities and a range of services and initiatives, young people will prosper, have better outcomes. And so we kind of listened to all that feedback, and as a partnership, we just kind of discussed all that. And hence the launch of this fund this week. That's kind of where that's come from sort of listening to what people were saying, where the need is. And so the fund has been launched this Monday. Right, so that's kind of a bit of a background of the serious violence duty and where this has all come from. So the fund headlines then, really. So, the objectives of the fund are to prevent and reduce serious violence. It's about improving outcomes for young people and our communities. As I've already mentioned, the fund is part of Home Office funding, which is aligned to the introduction of the serious violence duty. The fund launched this Monday and is open until the 2nd of February this year, and interventions can start on the 1st of April and can run until the end of March 2025. Grants are available up to £15,000. And grants are open to the voluntary, community, faith, social enterprise sector, educational settings and public bodies. And the application process is the same for all of those. They'll all go through the foundation. Like many Home Office grants, funding is available quarterly, so after interventions are delivered. So if an intervention runs for 12 months, there'll be 4 payments, 1 payment per quarter. So Nisa's going to talk a bit more about the detail, the interventions, the target audience, and the timescale, and then we'll finish off more with a bit about the criteria of the fund and monitoring, and then hopefully we'll get to some of your questions in a bit. So Nisa, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Hi everybody. So yeah, here we've got a list of all the key target audiences for interventions. I'm not going to read them all out, but the intervention types are listed below, and the approaches the Home Office has asked for the fund to be focused on are all here. There's a link at the top there for the Youth Endowment Fund Toolkit, which provides a great overview of existing research approaches to preventing serious youth violence. And just to mention option 16, other, there may be a programme or an intervention that isn't listed here, and we do want to, we're happy for people to sort of think outside of that box and come and talk to us if there is something that you think works in the past or something that may work in the future. Please do talk to us, because any ideas we're really interested in. If you've got something that you think could prevent serious violence that isn't listed here, please do talk to us about it. Don't see it as, just these 15 options and nothing else. Thank you. So the key target audience for the interventions are predominantly young people. So that's where we need to focus projects and interventions. However, those over 25 are applicable for some of the intervention types. So such as parenting programs, for example. So again, it's not just for young people. It could affect people that are over that age bracket, but again, please do consider these options. Several target groups might be applicable for one intervention type. So as mentioned in the previous slide of intervention types, and you may target those with known risk or potentially high risk, that those groups that already are high risk, and those are already involved in violent crime or focus on universal implementation. So Ipswich, Lowestoft, Bury St Edmunds, Sudbury, Haverhill and Newmarket are the areas that have been identified with the greatest needs. That's where most of our hotspots lie and where the main focus will be, but there are lots more details for lots more details of locations and wards, etc., in the application forms. And then looking at delivery type, there's lots of different ways in which things can be delivered. So we can be looking at prevention, early intervention, therapeutic delivery, or desistance, depending on what suits your project. Thank you. So here you can see the timescales for the fund. The fund timeline is now live, as you know, you're all here, which is great. And after our launch on Monday, we're now looking forward to accepting applications from you all from now through to the 2nd of February. And after the application review, we will hold a one-day panel with duty holders to assess the applications in mid-March and then notify successful applicants before the end of March. Interventions can go live from April the 1st onwards, but they do not have to start on April the 1st. So to touch again on payments, as Chris talked about, if you're from a voluntary community, faith organisation or from an educational setting, you will be paid as soon as possible after your quarterly monitoring has been submitted, which again we can go through with all the applicants. If you are a public sector organisation, payments will be made when the Home Office has received your quarterly monitoring, which will be at the end of every quarter. All intervention programmes should be completed by the 31st of March 2025. So all the funding should be spent by that point that you receive. Thanks, Chris. So looking at the criteria and monitoring here. So in the green section, I've got the monitoring requirements, as we've touched about through the presentation. All of these monitoring requirements will allow you, all successful applicants, to claim funding to deliver interventions which will tackle serious violence in Suffolk. We'd also like to collect a number of case studies as we go through to really celebrate the success stories and learnings that we gained throughout the next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And then just to finish off, really, there's a few more bits on the slide here. So funding cannot be spent on assets unless it's if you're running an initiative, maybe a sporting initiative, and you need money for basketballs or rugby balls or something like that. There's some consideration that can be made there in terms of spend. As we said, funding's available per quarter. Duplicate funds not accepted. So what we're talking about here is Home Office funding. So if you're running an intervention and you want to expand that intervention because of the you might be oversubscribed, or you're having some great success and you want to expand it, you can apply for funding here. But if you're already being funded by the Home Office, some Home Office funding, no duplicate funding's available there through this. Obviously, the foundation would do due diligence checks on all the applications that are made. And as I just mentioned, really, that the funding doesn't have to be for a new intervention, although we'd love to see new interventions and new innovation. If you've got an intervention that's successful, an existing intervention, the funding can be used to part fund that as well. That's all we've got for you, really. Jess, I'll hand back to you if that's okay.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Chris and Lisa. That's really interesting, and it's great to hear more about the fund, and I hope that that's been useful to those of you that are on the call. I'm just going to share my presentation now, if you just bear with me. Hopefully the tech won't let me down. thinking about it. Are we on? We're on. Okay. Okay, brilliant. So my name's Jess, for those of you that haven't met me before. Relatively new to the foundation still, been here about 4 months, and I'm programmes manager here at the foundation. I predominantly work on our public sector funds. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit today about the application process. Many of you will have applied to the foundation before, I'm sure, but some of you may be completely new to the foundation. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an oversight as to what we need to see in an application and the process as well. So to apply for funding, you'll need to provide the documents that I've listed on this slide. I won't go through them all with you, but we will need to see things like a governing document, articles of association, a current equality and diversity policy, safeguarding policy, and that's not just if you work with children, but any organisation, your year-end accounts, and if these are more than 6 months old, we will need to see management accounts or some sort of balance sheet, please. And you must have a bank account in the organisation's name that requires 2 signatories. So what happens when we receive your application? Once we receive it, a grants officer will complete due diligence checks on your organisation and on your application, and they will write an assessment of your application. The grants team may need to contact you at this point just to ask a bit of additional information if necessary. All the assessments will be sent to the fund's independent grant making panel, who will look at each application and decide whether or not to award a grant. Reasons for rejection that we generally see, that the application maybe doesn't enough, the fund is often oversubscribed, insufficient demonstration of need, high level of reserves, insufficient information provided. But please do contact us if you have any concerns or questions about any of these things. We'll be able to assist you. So the Serious Violence Duty Fund, Nisa and Chris told you everything you need to know really, but I just got a few other bits on here. It's open on our website. It opened on Monday. So if you'd like to visit the website, you'll be able to find more details about the fund, about the criteria, and also some other useful links to documents that you might find useful when you're writing your application. Applications can be for a maximum of 15,000, as Chris and Nisa said, and they can be used for existing or new interventions, and funding will be allocated quarterly after monitoring is received, which you will send directly to the foundation. And who can apply for funding? Charitable and voluntary groups, faith and community groups, educational settings and public bodies. Our top tips when you're writing your applications is just to read and reread the guidance and criteria that you'll find on our website. Make sure that all your supporting documents meet the criteria that we expect, and you'll find those on our website as well. For this application in particular, it's slightly different to our standard application form. So please take a look at the hidden text on some application questions, which are marked with the little I, as you can see on the slide there. And this is where you'll find some more information that will help you to answer the questions on the form. Clearly explain what you want to do, how you intend to do it, and who the beneficiaries of your intervention will be. Explain how your planned intervention fits the aims of the fund, the Serious Violence Duty Fund, and to know your costs. This is particularly key in this for this fund, given that we have the quarterly submission of expense. So please know what you think you're going to be asking for in each quarter. That will help us to plan going forward. So what happens next? As we said, applications are already open on our website. Applications will close on the 2nd of February, and we will let you know the outcome of your application by the end of March. So that just leaves me to say, please contact us if you have any questions or any queries after this call. We're more than happy to help and assist you. My email is on here. I'll also pop it in the chat, but please do get in touch if you need anything. So I will open to questions now, please. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Bear with me. So if you have a question, please do pop your hand up. Okay, Fiona, you had your hand up. What would you like to ask, please?
Hi, Jess. Sorry, a sticky mute button. Thanks for the webinar, super useful. I was just wondering what the full settlement for this, you know, you talked about a lot of funds being oversubscribed. There's a lot of people on this call. And I noticed that this is open to statutory sector as well, including education. So I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of competition for this. So what is the total amount of fund?
The total amount is 150,000. So yeah, we expect that it will be competitive, but we hope that there'll be some great interventions that will be able to take place. Does that help, Fiona? Okay. UKME Vocations Champion. I'm sorry, I don't see your name on the screen there.
Hi there. Sorry, my name's Kieran. Nice to meet you. Thanks very much for all the info. I just had a quick question about assets. So I work on the Triangle Estate in Ipswich at Triangle Church, and there is a youth zone. Well, our youth group, Youth Zone, came to mind when I was thinking about, you know, funding existing interventions just with better equipment, basically. I visit there as often as I can, and one of the things that I've noticed is that we could do with some nicer stuff. So my question was, how would one assess how directly stuff that one buys for young people to engage with during a night, how would you assess that directly contributing or not to an intervention? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Would your application be solely for assets, or would the assets form part of the application?
I would need to speak to the people who run Youth Zone because it's not directly my responsibility. It's just they came to mind very much when I was on the call. So it may well be that there are other things as well. But I wanted to ask the question about assets because that was the first thing that came to mind.
Sure. I guess if Youth Zone were to put in an application for that intervention that they're delivering, or they'd like to expand on that intervention or something else they'd like to do, and that equipment forms part of that project, then that would be applicable. Chris, am I on the right lines there? Would you like to jump in at all?
No, yeah, but that's perfect, Jess. I think, yeah, I think Kieran, yeah, lovely to meet you, Kieran. I think you know, just what Jess has said, really. I think an application just for assets might not be as sort of favourable as an application that's looking to do more than just buy assets, essentially. Yeah.
Great, thanks very much.
Sally, what was your question, please?
Hello, thank you for this morning, everyone. Chris, I think it was you that mentioned a needs assessment of serious crime in Suffolk. Where might I be able to find such document is my first question.
Sure, I'll respond to your first question. So the document's at the moment just being sanitised, and it's likely that it'll be published on the SCC website. So the strategy has just been published on the SCC website, and yeah, we're hopeful that the needs assessment will be published there as well. If not the full needs assessment, I think what we want to do is to get an overview at least onto the website as soon as possible.
Thank you. My second question was around if there are any stipulations within the criteria for the funding around the proportion that can be used for staffing costs, core costs, and that sort of thing.
Chris, did you want to answer that one?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, Sally. Staffing costs, core costs, things like that. I think that's all covered within the application. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Sorry, Jess, I think you were on mute there.
Oh dear, schoolgirl error. We have a question from A Hunter, please. I'm sorry, I can't see your first name.
So it's Andrew.
Andrew.
So thank you for that, Jess. The documentation to support applications that you talked about will be very difficult to provide for schools because we don't have those kind of we don't have a constitution and we don't have accounts that we can share. Is there a similar list for public sector organisations that you could share?
Sorry, my colleague's just talking to me in the background. You won't need to provide a governing document in that case. Is there anything else that we would need ideally?
You won't need to submit accounts either.
And you won't need to submit you won't need to submit accounts either. But please do, link up with me afterwards if you've got any further questions.
Thank you.
Andy Cook.
Yeah, hello, Jess. Thank you very much to you and Chris for a really useful, informative presentation. I just wanted to say I'm the Financial Sustainability Officer at Community Action Suffolk. In one of your slides, Jess, you're pointing out some of the policies and procedures that organisations need to have in place, which is always useful as a reminder. I just wanted to mention on our website, there is a link to something called the Quality Assurance Framework. And in there, organisations across Suffolk can effectively do a quick fit to be funded health check on themselves, which doesn't cost anything. And in there, it will remind them of some of the sort of policies in terms of safeguarding and health and safety, insurance, all those sorts of things that they need to have in place. So I was just going to give a quick free plug for organisations across Suffolk that the Quality Assurance Framework on our website is available. So that was it really, Jess. But thank you very much for your presentation.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Andy. Would it be possible for you to pop the link to that in the chat, maybe? So we can
I'm on my own in a room. If I'm clever enough to work it out, I will do it. All right.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
No worries. Did we have any other questions? Daisy, did you have a question?
Yes, hi, it's Daisy from CHIP CIC. Just asking if this fund it's necessary to have 3 directors. We're in between a third director at the moment, but I know from previous applications to Suffolk Community Foundation that there's been a necessity for 3 directors, not just 2 signatories. So can you let me know if that's the case with this fund?
It is the case with this fund, Daisy, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Jim, question from you. You're on mute there, Jim. It's not just me today.
No. Yeah. Thanks, Jess. Question for Chris, really. Serious violent crime is a very wide topic. Having spent 22 years in community safety, is there are there key elements that you are particularly wanting to be tackled as part of this funding that we can perhaps think more closely about? Because I think if you look at it as a broad topic, it can be quite daunting, whereas if it's more specific targets that you're after, I think that might help sort of people sort of come to terms with it a bit. Because obviously some work could be done around the nighttime economy, but when you look at the requirements, only one of the wards in Ipswich, say, would be applicable for that, because that's the town centre sort of ward where most of the problems occur. The wards that I'm interested in are very much young people focused. We have already done some work on knife crime and the impacts of that as a charity, and I was just hoping to get a little bit of clarity on what you're really looking for.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. That's a really useful question, I think. Yeah, when the serious violence duty was introduced, there's always guidance in the background for these kind of things for statutory organisations on what you need to kind of achieve as part of the duty. And I think when it was very first introduced, the focus was very much on the serious violence duty was about knife crime and gun crime and youth violence. And I think as the duty developed and was finally released, I think the Home Office realised that that needed to be broadened, because places like Suffolk or Norfolk or other rural counties, the levels of knife crime and gun crime are just not seen as we might see in a London borough or a metropolitan area. And so the Home Office left it up to us as an individual area to decide what is included in serious violence and what is not included in serious violence. And of course, when you've got a decision like that to make, you look at the data and you talk to people. And I think in this instance, there's no getting away from the fact that most of the serious violence in Suffolk is related to violence against women and girls, sexual offences. They're also related to criminal exploitation, which amounts to its core modern slavery. Children are involved there. We don't have very high levels of weapons crime in Suffolk, and so it then falls to those other areas where serious violent crime is kind of is experienced. And you mentioned the nighttime economy, and we did a separate piece of work within the needs assessment around the nighttime economy, because when this piece of work came to us, we could see already in terms of violent crime what we knew that might be in Suffolk, but we did want to explore other areas. The nighttime economy at the moment is not a particular focus for statutory organisations in terms of the Safer Strong Communities Board or the community safety partnerships. As you'll know, Jim, that's your background. Although it used to be. The nighttime economy is not a particular focus. When they did that piece of work, what did come back for the nighttime economy, but most of those issues, those serious violent crimes, as we can guess, was related to violence against women and girls, so domestic abuse and sexual violence. And so it's kind of covered already within those crime types and those profiles, if that makes sense. But what we're interested in here, I think, Jim, because it is a really broad category, isn't it? You know, like you said, it is really broad. But what we're interested in here is preventative initiatives, early intervention initiatives relating to young people. And so anything that's related to those types of issues and those types of crimes will be considered. I hope that answers the question, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yes, we have a young men's and a young women's group with, I had set up and run Written Youth Partnership. And so we have those groups in place already. I think what we would like to do is probably to expand the numbers that we engage with. And that would probably mean working with local schools as well, which we have some good contacts with, and see how it goes. But and what I didn't want to do was to go off down sort of blind alleys, knowing the breadth of the topic. So,
no, absolutely. Yeah, please do make an application, Jim. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Karen, a question from you.
Hello, hi everybody. I was wondering whether there's lots of evidence to show that creative activity is good, in a preventative way to keep kids off the streets and, help self-esteem and stuff like that. Do you think that things like after-school theatre clubs in certain areas would be a good thing to apply for money for?
Hi, Karen. Yeah, lovely to meet you. Yes, absolutely. On that slide that Nisa kind of talked to earlier, number 11 was after school programs, which absolutely would fall in that category. There may well be other things in there as well, Karen, on the list from the Home Office that would hit that kind of type of initiative. So yeah, that's definitely included.
That's really good to know. Well, bearing in mind the current news situation, arts and heritage organisations are desperately looking for other ways to fund their really important activity that they do. So this might be a way of doing that.
Great, thanks, Karen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Jim, your hand's up still. Is that an old hand from previously? I think it probably is. There you go. Does anyone else have any other questions at all? Does anyone want to put their potential project idea to Chris and Nisa and myself on this call? Anyone else brave enough to just thought if you have any specific questions about the intervention that you might like to deliver, now is an amazing chance to get those questions answered. But if you don't obviously feel comfortable to do so, then we can take that offline and you can contact me separately. Daisy.
Hi, at CHIPS CIC we are really, we work with loads of volunteers already, and lots of them have experience with working in different social services and social situations, and we'd really like to offer a mentoring program and a volunteer work experience program at CHIPS CIC. So we're open Monday to Saturday 10 till 4 every day, and we have higher events in the evenings and on Sundays for music and craft and making, and we have daily programs, creative program which is free for everybody to enjoy. Monday to Saturday there's everything from chess club to drumming to poetry and creative writing to music industry expertise, meetups and a climate cafe. So we just like to sort of, and we've also got a youth council already, so we would be asking the youth council to take the lead in this project to build up more youth engagement within CHIPS CIC.
Sounds great, Daisy. Where can I ask where you're based?
We're on 47 St Nicholas Street.
So right in town.
Corner of Silent Street.
Great. Chris, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share on that? Or?
No, thanks for that, Daisy. That's interesting. That mentoring program you mentioned earlier, that would fit really nicely with the fund and the types of initiatives that can be run. So yeah, great. Thank you.
Great. Well, that's lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for attending the webinar, and please do visit our website for the application link and the criteria and any other supporting documentation that might help you in writing your application. And we finished earlier than we had scheduled, which is great. It gives you all time to go off and start writing your applications. An extra 20 minutes. But thank you so much for attending. Thank you, Chris, Nisa. And we're really excited to start receiving your applications. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks all. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.